In the peaceful town of Windermere, Claire Dawson stands on what should have been the happiest day of her life, her wedding day. Dressed in white lace and trembling with unease, she senses something isn't right. Her loyal German shepherd, Rex, seems to sense it too. Though her fiancé Ethan Cross appears charming and perfect, Rex has never trusted him. As the ceremony begins, Rex breaks free from his handler and charges down the church aisle, growling fiercely between Claire and Ethan. The crowd gasps, chaos erupts, and in that instant, Claire sees something dark flicker across Ethan's face. Guilt and fear. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop your country in the comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Now let's continue. The sunlight spilled across the quiet town of Windermere like liquid gold, sliding over rooftops, kissing the windows, and glinting on the cobblestone streets. Inside a quaint little house at the edge of town, Claire Dawson stood in front of a mirror, her reflection framed by a cascade of ivory lace. Her wedding dress shimmered softly under the light, a dream she had imagined since she was a little girl. But dreams can be deceptive. Sometimes they shine brightest right before they break. Her heart should have been racing with excitement, yet all she felt was stillness. Heavy, uneasy calm. "Mom would have loved this," she whispered, brushing a strand of chestnut hair from her face. Behind her on the bed, her German shepherd Rex lifted his head, ears twitching. His amber eyes watched her closely, following every move as if he understood far more than a dog should. Claire smiled faintly at him in the mirror. "Don't look at me like that. I know what you're thinking. It's finally happening." Rex didn't wag his tail. He only tilted his head slightly, his gaze unwavering. There was something ancient in those eyes, a quiet warning that Claire didn't want to hear. Downstairs, the living room smelled of roses and champagne. The morning buzzed with energy as her fiancé, Ethan Cross, spoke to the wedding planner over the phone. His voice carried that smooth, persuasive charm that had drawn her in 2 years ago. He was handsome, the kind of man who looked like he had never lost at anything in his life. Tall, composed, confident. He always said the right words, wore the right smile, and made her feel chosen. "Babe," he said as she walked in, his eyes scanning her dress. "You look perfect." "Thank you." He leaned down to kiss her cheek but stopped midway when Rex padded between them, growling low and sharp. "Seriously, Claire, that dog needs to learn his place," Ethan said with irritation. "He's just protective," she said quickly, kneeling beside Rex and rubbing his neck. "He's not used to all the noise." Ethan rolled his eyes. "He's a jealous mutt. Maybe he senses you won't be his anymore." The words stung, even though he said them lightly. Claire forced a smile. "He's family, Ethan." "Well, family's about to expand," he said with a wink before heading outside. Rex followed him with his gaze, silent but tense. By noon, the church was alive with whispers and perfume. Guests filled the pews, faces glowing with excitement. The air was thick with the scent of lilies, and the music flowed softly from the organ. Outside, a limousine gleamed under the afternoon sun, waiting to carry the bride and groom into their new life. Claire stood in the vestibule, clutching her bouquet so tightly that the stems bent slightly in her hands. Her bridesmaid, Lila, adjusted her veil. "You ready?" she asked. "I think so," Claire said, but her voice didn't sound like her own. Her father took her arm, smiling with tear-filled eyes. "You look just like your mother did when she married me." That should have comforted her. Didn't. Then, as the first chords of the wedding march began, Rex, who had been quietly waiting in the churchyard with a neighbor, broke free from his leash. A shout went up. The church doors flew open. And there he was, storming down the aisle like a soldier charging into battle, fur bristled, teeth bared. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone screamed. The pastor froze mid-word. "Rex!" Claire cried, her voice breaking. He skidded to a stop right in front of her, his body tense, blocking her from Ethan. His growl was guttural, primal, protective. "Get that animal out of here," Ethan barked, anger flashing across his face. But Rex wouldn't move. His eyes were locked on Ethan's, not with fear but with accusation. And then Claire saw it, that flicker of something in Ethan's expression. Guilt. Panic. The kind of fear that had nothing to do with the dog. "Ethan," she whispered. "What's going on?" He looked away too quickly. "Nothing. He's just crazy." But in that one moment Claire knew. She didn't know how she knew. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was fate. But the truth hit her harder than any word could. This wasn't right. This wasn't love. And the dog she had rescued from the shelter 2 years ago had just rescued her back. By the time the chaos subsided, the guests were gone, the flowers wilting under the afternoon sun, and the church doors closed. Claire sat on the steps in her wedding gown, veil crumpled in her lap. Rex lay beside her, his head resting on her feet. His breathing calm now, as if his job was done. Ethan had stormed off after a shouting match with her father. His mask finally slipping in front of everyone. The lies came tumbling out afterward. The debts, the secret messages, the other woman. Everything Rex had sensed, everything she'd ignored. Her hands trembled as she stroked his fur. "You knew all along, didn't you?" she whispered. He looked up at her, tail thumping gently. Claire laughed softly, half crying. "Guess I should have listened to you instead of my heart." The wind picked up, rustling the trees. Somewhere, a church bell rang the hour. Slow, distant, forgiving. The world looked different when you stopped pretending it was perfect. A year had passed since that unforgettable day. The wedding photos were gone, the ring sold, and the house she once shared with Ethan had been replaced by a cozy cottage near the lake. Claire now ran a small animal shelter called Second Chances, a dream she had tucked away for years but never had the courage to pursue. Rex, of course, was her right hand, or rather her right paw. He greeted every visitor with that same cautious intelligence, as if screening them for her approval. Sometimes she joked that he was her living lie detector. One rainy afternoon, she sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching Rex chase droplets that ran down the glass. She smiled, a soft warmth filling her chest. "You changed my life, you know that?" Rex looked back at her, tail wagging once. She set the mug down and crouched beside him. "You didn't just protect me from him. You reminded me what real love looks like. It doesn't manipulate, doesn't take. It just stays." Outside, the sky darkened, thunder grumbling in the distance. The same kind of storm that had raged on her almost wedding day. Only this time she wasn't afraid of it. She opened the door and stepped onto the porch with Rex trotting beside her. Rain fell softly around them, silver threads against the twilight. Claire lifted her face to the sky and breathed in deeply, the scent of rain, earth, and new beginnings. Rex sat close, pressing against her leg, silent but steady. "Forever, huh?" she whispered. He leaned into her, tail sweeping once across the wooden floor. And in that moment, under the soft, forgiving rain, Claire Dawson finally understood that some heroes don't ride in on white horses. Sometimes they arrive on 4 paws. And stay until your heart learns how to heal. Months later, Claire's shelter began attracting attention. People drawn to her story, her resilience, and the quiet strength in her companionship with Rex. One afternoon, during a live radio interview, the host asked her, "If you could say one thing to the people who've lost faith in love, what would it be?" Claire smiled, glancing at Rex curled at her feet. "I'd tell them love doesn't always look like the movies," she said softly. "Sometimes it's not a person who saves you. Sometimes it's a moment or even a dog that reminds you who you really are. Love, at its purest, isn't about finding someone to complete you. It's about learning to feel whole again, with or without someone else." The studio fell silent. Then came the applause, quiet but sincere. And Rex, ever the humble hero, lifted his head and barked once, as if punctuating the truth. As the sun dipped behind the horizon that evening, Claire and Rex walked along the lakeshore. The water shimmered like glass, reflecting the fire of the fading sky. Claire tossed a stick, and Rex bounded after it, his joyful bark echoing across the calm water. When he returned, she knelt beside him, burying her fingers in his fur. "Thank you," she whispered, "for choosing me that day, and for staying." The lake breeze rustled the trees, carrying with it the scent of lilacs, the sound of peace. Rex licked her hand once, his eyes bright as if to say, "You're welcome." Together they sat in silence, watching the last light fade. A woman and her loyal companion, bound not by words or vows, but by something deeper, older, and infinitely true. And though the world moved on, that evening would always remain. The day love came in the shape of a dog who simply refused to let her walk into the wrong forever. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Echoes of Life Stories. Because every story we tell reminds us that love, loyalty, and hope still exist. Sometimes in the quietest corners, and sometimes in the eyes of a dog who never gave up on you.